Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first ever live D&H Market Shift webinar for 2024. We're excited to have you here today to talk all things marketing, all things market shift, and updating you on some conversations that we like to have with our partners when we're doing some custom projects for them, or just talking about overall marketing strategies for our partners. So if you're here to talk about marketing, you are in the right place, and we're happy to have you here. My name is David Labagh. I'm the Senior Manager of Marketing Communications at D&H. And with me today, I have Ed Hidden, who's the Senior Manager of Marketing Solutions at D&H. We've worked together for about 15 years now. In fact, my 15-year anniversary at D&H is today, so you're joining me for a very special occasion. We're both avid cyclists, and we both have very complementary expertise in marketing. So I think that you'll be surprised at what you might get from some of the conversations that we'll have. So Ed, you've been in creative development and production for a long, long time, a lot longer than I have. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit more about your professional experience.
Sure, thanks, Dave. I've had a creative career, I think, since about like my junior or senior year in high school. I took tech for commercial design, worked my senior year in a print shop, and then transitioned over to an art school where when I got out, I did everything from illustration to photography to I worked at an ad agency previous to coming to D&H, so I have experience in a traditional ad agency with doing billboards and radio commercials and TV commercials and all of those sorts of things. And then came to D&H, and I've been at D&H for I had my anniversary this month as well, so I'm 24 years here at D&H that I've worked in the marketing department. Started out with just myself doing some of the initial web designs, and then as each time we put on new offerings, we've added on to the team, and now we went from a team of 1 to now there's 12 people on just my digital team alone, and then we have our design team and the Marcom team as well. So the marketing growth over the last 2 decades plus here at D&H has been awesome. So, hopefully we have enough information here and expertise to go ahead and inform people as to what we can offer them.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, we've got close to 40 years experience combined between the two of us. And to give some detail on my background, I am the exact opposite of Ed. I've been in the fake it till you make it mode since I was in high school. I'm self-taught in a lot of areas and have learned along the way from college all the way through my professional career. So Ed is the expert. I'm the one just trying to make things work, and Ed's thinking that I'm being modest here. But very, very different backgrounds. But I always enjoy having a lot of conversations with Ed and just talking marketing in general, outside of recycling conversations. But that's for another time. So now that we've had the little get to know you session here, so everyone here in attendance can learn a little bit more about Ed and I, let's talk about what we're going to go over today. So of course, this is the D&H Market Shift quarterly webinar. Market Shift, formerly known as Partner Services, is our marketing service where you can go and access a number of campaign kits and marketing templates, brand them for your own business, and then send them out to your clients to help you sell and go to market with the solutions and the technologies that are important to you and your business. So first of all, we're going to have Ed go over some updates for the Market Shift web portal on D&H.com and D&H.ca, so you know what templates and campaign kits are out there for you to start utilizing today. After we go over the updates on the web portal, we're going to dig into our topic for today, which is really knowing your audience and what it means to know your audience and apply that to a marketing strategy. And Ed and I are going to have a discussion on that for the majority of today. And then following at the end, after we get done going over knowing your audience and how to apply that to your strategies, we're going to open it up for Q&A for anybody to ask us anything they want, whether it's on today's topic, it's on the Market Shift web portal on D&H.com or D&H.ca, or just marketing in general. We want this webinar to be a resource for you to come and get the answers that you need to help with your marketing strategies. So without further ado, Ed, why don't you go over some of the new kits and templates that we have available in Market Shift?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And let me share entire screen 2. And let's see when this pops up here. There we go. So this gives you, as Dave mentioned, the URLs that we have, dnh.com/market_shift, or if you're a Canadian customer, it's dnh.ca/market_shift. And that brings you into this portal right here. And we covered a lot of this in our first webinar that we had done. But the big section that we have in here is the custom marketing resources section. So we have a lot of content that we have in here. We have toolkits and we have templates so that you can go ahead and use these campaigns to further your business and market these technologies. And I've downloaded a couple of the new ones that the newer ones that we have out here that we're going to talk about. So that would be the Windows 10 end of support toolkit that we have. And then we also have the Samsung displays for education and Lenovo unlocking the future of education. And just taking a quick look at these, you can see like the Microsoft Windows 10 end of support. We have social media imaging. We have emails. Let's pull one of those up here. Wrong button. So we have a Windows 10 email that can be sent out to your customers, and you can customize all of that information here at the bottom. And then we also have a landing page that you can put up onto your website. So that gives you a look of, gives you a preview of it, and then we have all the assets to rebuild it in whatever sort of web publishing platform that you have. And then moving on to our next one, we have Samsung. And this is one of the customized templates that we have that you can go ahead and add your logo and company information, and then save that, send them out to any prospective clients that are interested in this technology. And then same with Lenovo. This is another one of the sales flyers where you can go ahead and add your business logo information, and then you have some ready-made kits to go ahead and market to. Getting back to my notes here. The other thing I was going to mention is a reminder to watch last quarter's webinar that we did with Market Shift. And that is available in the Market Shift page. I believe we have a link for it that has go out and review that. But moving in to the program itself, we want to talk about knowing your audience. Actually, I'm going to close down my screen share so we can bring Dave back to the screen here.
And edit. Just while you're shutting down that screen, just before we move on, I think it's important to also say that while you're exploring the web portal, if you see something that, or if you notice something that's not there that you want to see in a marketing kit, tell us. In fact, you can also go into the live Q&A module within the environment that you're in, and you can type in a question or a comment there. Let us know what topics or solutions or technologies you want to see marketing kits on, or whether it's something for a specific vertical or a specific use case. We're happy to hear what you want to have and what you need for your marketing. So go ahead and throw that in the Q&A, or if you have any questions about those resources that Ed just showed off, feel free to type us a question in the chat.
Cool. So let's move into the discussion portion, I guess. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is understanding how to market to people. So the first part of it would be kind of knowing your audience and who you want to go to. So Dave, why is it important to understand your audience before you launch a sales or a marketing campaign?
Yeah, and I'm going to throw this back to you with a question, Ed, and really a question to the audience too. So how many of you, and feel free to throw this in the Q&A as well, and Ed, I'm looking for your response here. How many of you have received an email that said, "Dear Madam/Sir," and then it went on to talk about something that was kind of related to your business, but wasn't quite related to your business, and you were probably found on some marketing list somewhere, and maybe even something that was completely unrelated to your business? Have you gotten those emails before? Because I've gotten a ton.
Yeah, I get them almost daily, and it seems like, I've worn a number of hats while I've been here, but it's still, I get ones that are, they're cold emails. They don't have like a really good understanding here. They're just hoping that it might be something that we're interested in. I'm constantly getting content that should be targeted at more of our IT professionals, or they're things that should be going to our HR contacts or just weird things like that. It's all the time that I'm seeing it. And actually, we're seeing a number of contacts here that people are saying, yeah, they get these email, daily from a lot of our people. So
Yeah.
even if it is a service that you think your company might be offering, it's number one, it's frustrating because it takes time out of your day. If you get a bunch of them, then your inbox is, congested. You feel like your time has been wasted. And even if it is something that you think you might engage with later, it starts off that conversation on a very sour note. So it's really hard to work past that. So,
Exactly.
when you're doing a cold reach out like that, it's important you get that right person so you get that first impression as powerful and impactful as you can.
Yeah, and exactly what you're saying, Ed. To go to market without knowing your target audience actually risks alienating your target audience and making them feel like you don't know their business. When in fact that you as their IT provider or even us as your distributor, and I'm sure that we've been spamming in some ways, to be honest. We send out a lot of communications. But if we're not speaking to the right audience with the right message at the right time, it comes off as tone deaf. So that's why it's super important to know your audience up front. And in fact, it's really important to kind of think strategically about your entire communication plan or campaign before you even start defining that target audience. So you can think of it in two ways. You can either start with the audience and then figure out how you're going to communicate to them, or you can start with a solution or a service or something that you're trying to sell or push, and then come up with, well, who uses this? Who is the audience? Who is this relevant to? So when it comes to effectively targeting, you want to make sure that you are really kind of digging in to understand who fits in that solution. And we're not going to get into like the super nitty gritty of the data that you can use to target. But really, some of the questions that you want to ask is, again, if you're starting with that solution, or we'll use Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365 as an example today. So who's your audience for Copilot? Right now, if you go into the D&H Cloud Marketplace, you can add that on as a cloud solution. So my initial thought would be, great, well, what clients do we already have enrolled in cloud solutions that I'm selling today, or where I've sold Microsoft 365? And is it possible for me to be able to add Copilot to their licensing? So we'll start with that. We'll say our strategy is to target those customers that already have Microsoft 365 licenses. Then another step that you can take is say, okay, but I have 20 contacts from this company. Which contact at the company do I need to talk to about selling these Microsoft 365 licenses? Like Ed was mentioning, he gets emails from people where they should have gone to HR, they should have gone to IT, they should have gone to another department. You want to make sure that you're contacting the right person, whether that's a buyer at the company, whether that's somebody in the IT department who is the one responsible for deploying these licenses with you. But you really want to start to question, like, who is the decision maker and who is the user? And then you're going to want to consider that messaging, which we'll get into a little bit later, because the messages to the user and the decision maker are going to be two separate messages. So you've got to be really thoughtful about that. Additionally, you can also consider targeting based on recent behaviors. So if you have data that your website is collecting, or you have an email marketing platform where engagement data is logged, or you have social media where you're able to see who's liking posts or who's engaging with you, you can use those recent behaviors to further segment your audience and even more define who might be interested. So you start with that list of Microsoft 365 partners that you have, and you can say, okay, based on these guys, who just added licensing? Whose licensing is coming up for renewal? Who engaged with Microsoft 365 marketing that we sent out last week or last month? And you can continue to refine that audience so it becomes more and more relevant and more timely to those partners. Finally, and this might be a step that you take sooner on in the process, you also want to define what success looks like. So if you're driving for sales and success is making those new sales, maybe you're targeting those buyers, those decision makers who are actually saying, yes, we're going to purchase this and we're going to purchase this much. If it's just drumming up interest, and you want to get meetings on the books so you can have those consultative calls with your clients, maybe success is booking those meetings, and maybe your target audience is more focused on the IT people within the client that you're looking at. So you can see as the more questions you ask, and depending on where people are in their sales cycle and like what your goals are with your campaign, things can change pretty quickly. Um, but going back to Ed's point earlier, if you're not talking to the right audience, it's going to fall flat, and success is not going to be successful. You're not going to have that success that you're looking for if it's falling flat and on deaf ears. So yeah, what else do you got for me, Ed?
Sure. Well, speaking about that success, and we've talked about the audience and the job titles and making sure you have everything, how we're who you want to talk to, you, keeping that organization of where this information is and that you have it accurate is, if you have it in Post-it notes, I imagine that's kind of like quite the worst way that you want to try to organize all of this information. I'm assuming that you're going to suggest that, they use some sort of a CRM or some other platform, but how would you structure that data and leverage that through like a marketing automation platform for a sales campaign?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yeah, a lot of clients, a lot of partners that we've talked to specifically for market shift consultations, we're kind of seeing a mixed bag where some people will have a formal client database. Other people will just have an email list, and others will have a full-fledged CRM system where they're logging everything from accounts and contacts to opportunities and leads, all within their system. So depending on what level of maturity you are in your business, and even considering how many people you have in your business, if you're a business of 1 or 2 people, it's going to be tough to maintain all of that information. But the benefits do outweigh the negatives here, and the time that you have to spend on getting it on a formal CRM system. So when it comes to CRM, a customer relationship management platform, or even a customer data platform, it can look like a number of different things. At D&H, we use Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM. You can use something like a MailChimp, email solution, through the web. You can use a number of other tools that you have out there, like a Salesforce or an Eloqua or Marketo. All are good examples of CRM systems. And really the benefit that you're going to get out of there, I would say first and foremost, it's going to be business continuity. Because say you go on vacation and somebody else has to take over your clients, how are they going to know your clients? Where are they going to get the information from? So always good to have all of your customer data stored in one central location from a business continuity perspective, so you don't lose anything, and so you can continue to create business even if you're not the one doing it. Second, a CRM system doesn't just have contact data and their email addresses and mobile numbers and work numbers, but it also tracks, or it can track, a lot of sales data and opportunity data. So if you have a lot of interconnected systems, or even if you have a basic point of sale system, it can actually log sales opportunities. So say you send a quote to somebody, it can log quotes and opportunities within the system. It can log sales over a certain amount of time. And on top of that, it can even log engagement data. So again, the interconnected systems today, CRMs and customer data systems can connect to a website platform. They can connect to email platforms. They can connect to survey services, and they can connect to something like a Zoom if you're doing webinars or video calls for your customers. So it just helps to aggregate all of that data. And then, on top of that, we're talking about target audiences here. All of this data can be used then by querying it in your customer data platform or CRM platform to help you define your audience. So that first step, coming up with who that audience is, that data in your CRM platform should be able to, you should be able to do some sort of advanced find or query in there that says, okay, I want customers who purchased this, or I sold them 365 to, and I want customers who did this or who engaged in this. create your list. It makes it easy. If you don't have that information and you're just keeping an email list somewhere and you're not really connecting that data, you could be missing out on some opportunities, or at least some really relevant targeting and really relevant communications to the right contacts. And we can maybe talk about this at a later date, but relevant content is super important to who you're marketing to, because if it's not relevant, they're not going to care.
Yeah, I was also going to add to it. I know you said about that, a lot of other systems can connect into a CRM, but the CRM can also be used as like a point of truth as you go out to other systems as well, like a web analytics system, for instance. Many of those have a robust customer data platform. And if you do your connection with that user from your CRM over to that platform, you get that benefit of when you have that update happening in the CRM, it'll reflect in your other systems that you have connected to it. So it's not just your marketing automation. It's all these other systems that you could rely on to know who your company is. And that CRM can kind of become that source of truth, which kind of leads to my next question that I have here is like, how do you maintain all of this data? I know internally we've struggled in the past with making sure that everything is as robust as possible, but are there good practices for who maintains that? Do you have a data wrangler, or is that the is it best to have that responsibility be within other people in the org?
Yeah, that's another solid question. And actually, before we jump into that, I'm actually going to address two quick things. So one, I'm going to add a disclaimer in here and say that while Ed and I are marketers, and we have an awesome team of marketing professionals at D&H, nobody's perfect. Nobody's marketing is perfect. So I guarantee that everybody on this webinar has received something from us, and they're like, yeah, this is not relevant to me, because nothing's perfect, including the data in the platform. And that's going to be how we transition to this next question, because data is tough to maintain and upkeep. And by the way, too, we were talking about relevant content as well. And I see a comment from Peter in here about getting emails weekly, and clearly they're AI designed. Yes and no, Peter. We can talk more about that later. There are great AI tools, and AI can be a benefit to your marketing, but let's save that for the next topic. And I think AI in marketing is going to be a really fun topic for us to discuss with our partners. But Peter, it's a mix. A lot of it is done by human beings with the aid and assist of AI tools, and that could be anything from Copilot to other paid sources. So back to your question, Ed, making sure that we're maintaining that data. So look, if you don't maintain the data, you're going to be sending a message to your audience that's not relevant. In fact, something that you may have experienced, or that I know that we experienced at some point when COVID hit, and business kind of got wild. It was the Wild West out there with trying to address the needs of all of the end clients and businesses that were going fully remote, and they needed to go remote right now. Well, some businesses thrived and made big business out of that huge opportunity. Other businesses during the pandemic shut down. They couldn't make payroll for their partners, so they had to close down. And so I'm using this as an example, because if that happens and that data isn't logged in a CRM system, and then you're still sending emails to a personal email address that was on that business account, and they shut down, that's got to hurt to get that email from a company that you trusted before, and they're now asking you for business when your business is defunct. So this is a reason why it's super important to do your best at maintaining that data. And it's always really tough to maintain data, because things are constantly evolving. Data from last week might not be relevant this week. Data from last year, it's certainly not going to be relevant this year. So it's all going to depend on so many factors to make sure that the data you're using is in fact current and relevant to how you're targeting and what you're marketing. So we're going over some risks of poor data here, that doesn't get updated in your customer data platform or CRM system, and with it not being clean. So one example, so a lot of marketing automation systems today you can import data dynamically into emails. And maybe that's the AI that Peter was talking about, where you can say hi and then enter the customer's first name here. Well, if you don't have the first name spelled accurately, or you have a generic first name because you didn't quite get it when you met them at an event, or a salesperson puts in something that they use to identify the person but isn't a real first name, you could be in trouble, because then at that point you're pulling in dynamic data that makes you look like you are totally missing the mark. So making sure that you have basic information in there correct as far as the individual goes, or as far as the account goes, that core data that you need to do business with them, that is very, very important. You may also run into the fact if you're sending an email to who you think is the IT guy or the buyer at the company, but he gave you an email alias to send to, well, you are sending to that person plus potentially 10 or 20 other people who are on that alias, which means that one of those other 10 or 20 people on that alias could choose to unsubscribe that email address if they choose to do it, which then prevents you from marketing to them in a mass email or mass communication kind of way in the future. Of course, unsubscribes are never something that you want to get. And then, of course, we talked about the changes to business and business status, or even business ownership, business location. Not having that information updated in your system puts you at risk of potentially losing a customer because you're using data that could be hitting a sore spot for them. So yeah, overall, the risks of poor data, they're high, and you want to do everything you can to mitigate those risks. The solutions with maintaining that data, it's a lot. Some of it could be dynamically done and done through data enrichment solutions, which of course cost money. Some data should be updated by sales reps or by whoever is the one interacting with those clients on a day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month basis. If you have the interactions, you should be updating them and making sure that that contact information, that sales data is complete and fully accurate in the system. And then additionally, you could choose to open up your system somehow and create a form that allows your customers to maintain and manage their data on their own, which is a great idea, especially if user-provided data is important to you for learning more about that partner. So user-provided data can be great in some ways, but it can also be dangerous, giving the end client, that end user, the ability to manage their data, because they might just go ahead and delete it all, which is legally their right to do, but it does prevent you from being able to contact them in the future. So really at our company at D&H, the onus on maintaining that data is primarily on our sales team, the people that have the relationships with our partners, that are talking with them on a daily or weekly basis, and they make sure that we have the best data possible on those accounts, on those contacts, so we can target and then speak relevant to our partners.
Yeah, and I was probably going to add in there too. I know, Dave, that you've done a number of trainings with the sales team on the effective use of keeping all of that information up to date and what's important and what to do and what not to do. But it's probably also a good time to mention that, as you're working with your organizations, that that training and expertise and expressing to that team the importance of those things being accurate and keeping everything as cleansed and clean and consistent is critical as you leverage more of these systems.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring that up, because sometimes as a marketer going to the sales floor, it's a little bit intimidating when you come to them with that message, asking them to maintain that data. If any of you, who are in attendance today, are in a larger company, and you're a marketer, and you try to talk to sales and you say, "Hey, sales, I need this," oftentimes you might be butting heads. There's that sales versus marketing mentality sometimes, and marketing's always adding more work to sales, and then sales is creating more work for marketing, and if you don't have that sales and marketing alignment, it can be a nightmare. But yeah, that's all dependent on the company that you're in. You always have to approach those conversations with your sales reps or whoever's maintaining that data in a delegate and productive way, which is very similar to how you would, approach your messaging to your target audience with marketing anyway. So really, it's just good practice in marketing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and we've talked about, the importance of our data. We've talked about the different types of things that you want to look at. So you have all of this. How do you decide which clients you would include in like your campaign's target audience? Like, what sorts of things would you look at?
Yeah. So we kind of went over this a little bit before about targeting the data that you would use, and we've used some examples for Copilot and Microsoft 365. What I would recommend to any business out there, if you haven't done this already, at a very, very high level for your business in general, or for like the larger segments of your business, I would recommend going through an exercise of defining an ideal customer profile, or an ICP. And if you haven't heard that term before, an ideal customer profile is really a very high level overarching description of who your target audience is for your business or for your business segment. When you're looking at ideal customer profiles, you're looking at mainly like business or account information, not necessarily individual engagement information for a contact. You're looking at what the business is. So if I'm an MSP partner and I'm trying to create an ideal customer profile for my accounts, it might be based on whether or not they've done cloud licensing with me in the past. It might be based on like the number of seats that they have available at their company. It might be based on the type of work that they do. If they're a big corporate entity and they just have a lot of people doing a lot of word processing, odds are they're going to want a lot of Microsoft 365. So you can kind of break it down from there and then start to really drill in on defining who do you want to go after as a business, who applies to the solutions and services that you're offering. And so you can do this in two different ways. One, you can do this aspirationally, or you can do this based on understanding your audience today. So if you do it aspirationally, you're saying, okay, well, I'm a VAR today. I've dabbled in the MSP space, but I want to go full-fledged MSP. I want to go X as a service. I want to create a cloud marketplace. I want to have all of this. I want to be known as the managed service provider, and I want to offer all of these additional services to my partners. My clients today are not going to fit the bill, or it's going to be really tough to serve them in the way that my business is going in that direction. So who am I going after now? Who do I need to start pursuing as a client? And so you can do it aspirationally with saying where you want to go, who you want to have as clients. And that could be a business size, like a smaller business, or you could start going after Fortune 500 companies and trying to become an IT partner to those people. So aspirationally is the first way. The second way that you can go about it is really understanding who your target or who your audience is today. Who are your clients today? And that is really just going back through your existing CRM data, your existing customer data, and doing some high-level reporting to create that ideal customer profile. And even if you're using that existing customer data, that's where you can start to go in and create customer profiles for, we'll say AI-driven solutions, since we're on the topic of Copilot. Do you have data on your audience today that says who would be more likely to adopt AI-driven solutions? Who are the early adopters of technologies? Who has started to dabble in the Copilot space? And if you have that data, cool, you can start creating that ideal customer profile for who you're going to sell Copilot PCs to, for who you're eventually going to sell, Azure services to that have Copilot built in, because that's on the horizon. You can really start to dig in that way based on the information that you have today in your clients to really look, instead of aspirationally and future forward about your ideal customer profile and your target audience, you can now take that data and look aspirationally and future facing for new and emerging technologies that your business is going to sell. So it's really important on what approach you go and then how you approach it from there. So defining that audience, super important. High level data, you don't have to go too in depth. But that just helps overall with making sure that at a very basic foundational level, you're targeting that audience that you want and you need to be targeting to build your business. Yeah, I think I hit on everything that I wanted to hit on there, Ed.
Yeah, I was going to say that even it's probably even more than just targeting your business, because it will, once you've defined who you are working with today and who you aspire to work with, you can use that to maybe adjust some of your business practices as well, so that you can become, not only go after those businesses you aspire to, but also be the company that those companies, would look towards.
Yeah, exactly. It's opportunity based, and as a business owner or somebody in an IT solution provider business today, that if you're not going after the next opportunity and you're not doing it proactively, you're losing business or you're missing those opportunities. So yeah, Ed, you're exactly right.
So we've covered a bit. We've covered our platforms. We've covered the data. We've covered how we want to build that audience profile. How do you put it all into practice? Like, where do you go from there? You've done all this legwork and everything.
Yeah, and my knee-jerk reaction here is to go to the D&H Market+SHIFT portal and download the campaign kits and apply it to a target audience that you've already defined. But that may not be the case for your business and your business model and your clients. What those resources can be is they can be campaign kits that you would then assign an audience to, or they can be resources that you have on hand ready to send to an audience that might be close or like ready to adopt that solution. So while I wish it were that easy, and I wish that like everything on that portal were like, yeah, great, download, click, send, done, business, it's not going to be the case. So really your steps here after going to the Market+SHIFT portal and downloading the relevant resources, it's going to be kind of going through that process that we talked about in the beginning. What does success look like? What are your goals and objectives? Define that target audience, and then it's coming up with that messaging. How do I message to that target audience with a relevant message, relevant content that's relevant to their business? How do I communicate that to them? Whether it's a landing page, an email driving back to the landing page, a social media post driving back to the landing page, or something that could be 100 of different ways. So then once you figure out what that needs to look like, and we can get into that, that's another topic later, deciding what creative asset, what advertising asset you want to use, what's best for your business. After you decide what that is and after you implement that, is tracking effectiveness. How did my audience receive that message in that marketing campaign? If you're tracking engagement data, you might have the information. If you're not, you might introduce some direct follow-ups one-to-one and see what the customer response is. Or you may need to log phone calls that you're getting inbound to say, hey, great, this email generated X amount of leads or conversations, and this is my pipeline now. And then, of course, if you're doing a campaign and it becomes something that you say, hey, this worked out great, I want to run it again. Well, warning, if you run the same campaign again, it may not work the exact same as the first time you did it. And you may not have the same kind of a success that you had the first time you did it. And that could be for a number of reasons. But you always want to make sure that you're using campaign data, campaign engagement data, to inform the next campaign that you have, but not to use it as like a definitive, we're going to use this exact same thing, we're going to do exactly this because the data says so, and it's going to go perfectly. It's never the case. Business and consumer behaviors change all of the time. How they absorb and interact with information changes all of the time. So it's really, it's an art and a science how you go about things. You're gonna use the data for what you can. You're going to develop the campaign, and you're going to hope that based on the data, based on the information you have, based on your audience and targeting, you're going to hope that you nailed it, and you're going to hope that you get a response that generates new opportunities for your business. Taking that data that you get from marketing campaigns and just continually refining or redefining your strategies is really important to that next campaign that you run, not just the previous one.
Very cool. Excellent. I guess we're moving into the next section of the webinar here, where we have the Q&A, and we've had quite a lot this actually. This is pretty exciting.
Awesome. Well, I'll let you field the first question, and while you're doing that, just a reminder to everybody who's here, if you have a question on the topics we just talked about, great. If you have a question about anything else in marketing, ask it. And there are no dumb questions. We promise you that. We're here to help you, and odds are that if you have the question, somebody else attending this webinar today also has it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start off with Rodney Hall. Hi, Rodney. Thanks for joining us again. He had asked if the links in the marketing collateral are active, and I believe I assume he's talking about the ones in the resources within this environment, and they should be. If there's a problem with any of them, let us know. We can certainly address those.
Yep, and a reminder to everybody too, the links, the URLs, whether you're a US partner or Canadian partner, dnh.com/market_shift or dnh.ca/market_shift. Market shift is all one word. You do need to be logged in to the website in order to access and download those assets. So you may be going to a page that has an adjusted navigation. If you're not fully logged in, you won't see the links to download vendor resources or the campaign kits. So just make sure that you log into the website and you'll be able to fully access everything.
Yep. The other one I was going to, it's already marked as answered here, but Babar had asked if we could go over the landing page, or how we can utilize that landing page in the template. I believe that we were talking about the Microsoft one, so I'm going to share my screen really quickly
Sure.
And kind of dive into this here a little bit more.
And Babar, why don't you go ahead and put in the chat what kind of web platform you're using? How is your website managed and hosted today? Because Ed could go a million different ways with this question on how to implement it. But if we want something more specifically for you, let us know what you're using.
Yeah, and if we're not familiar with whatever platform that you mentioned, maybe that becomes an offline conversation. I'll try and keep this high level so it can apply to anyone if they're questioning it. So as Dave was talking about a campaign, you can see that in this kit we have some emails and we have some social media images. If I double click one to bring it up and kind of preview it here for us, you can see these are just your straight up images that you can add natively either to like a Hootsuite if you're doing social marketing, or if you're going directly to LinkedIn, Facebook, you can just go ahead and add these graphics to it. Part of that is also copy that you can go ahead and just copy and paste into whatever environment that you're putting it into. So we already give you the language that's helpful as part of that. And that's also the same way with the email as well. I have pulled that briefly up, but there's two separate emails that can be utilized and customized. And all of those should drive back to your website, where we have this template of how to use these resources. So if I pull this one back up, this gives you an idea of what this web page, this landing page was designed to look like. Now it's a PDF. It gives you an idea of the content, where that content goes, and how it should be positioned. Excuse me. It's going to differ based on what web platform that you have, but in general, it's going to be that same thing where you would look at this and say, okay, this top section should be a section, and then you can drop in, as I go back to inside the website resources, you can see we have the hero image that's included, so that you could go ahead and drop that into your hero section, and then you can add this copy to the relevant placing in your section of your of the CMS of your web publishing platform. And then this would be your next section that you would go to, and we have the copy here that you can copy and paste, or it's also included in that Word document. And then again, you would find the appropriate image that goes with this one to drop into the image section of your CMS as well. So we give you all of the different pieces and parts to be able to assemble it in whatever system that you're using. I see that you had said that it's Ionos, and it's called one-to-one. So I'm not personally familiar with that one, but I would assume that it has a lot of these same sorts of functionality where you can say, add a section. This is the background image for that section. Add in text, center it, make this my subhead, make this my body copy. I have this piece, it's my call out, and we have the gradient off to the side here as well, so that you can drop that in and keep that same branding, so that it continues to look like a Microsoft piece. And basically that's the short of how you compile it. If you're doing it in straight HTML, it becomes even easier, especially if you have a framework. You can just go ahead and start putting in those sections, adding his background graphics, and then designing those foreground elements. So I hope that helps with that.
Yeah, and I'll also add here that, of course, if you're having difficulties implementing this into your website, or you just need some guidance, our MarketShift team is available to help. So if you email marketshift@dnh.com, and that's for both US and Canadian partners, that'll get you to our MarketShift team. And both Ed and I are on that alias. And we'd be happy to set up time with you to either maybe walk you through step by step, or just give you some guidance on how to update. Even if it's a platform we don't know, we can probably figure it out. They're very similar across the board with functionality and capabilities. But yeah, if you're looking for more of like a consultative approach, and you want to do the work on your own and learn, we're happy to help you out. So Ed, I kind of want to go to a question that I see from, and I'm gonna say this name wrong. Kier? K-E-I-R?
That would have been my guess. I would have guessed Kier as well.
So Kier, and if we're saying your name correctly, we apologize. You asked, as a follow-up, how do you define success of a campaign, and what duration should a campaign last? Well, how do you define success of a campaign? That's all going to come down to your business objectives. It's kind of hard. So I'll say that from my experience and from our experience, especially in the B2B world, it's sometimes tough to define success of a marketing campaign based on sales data, based on won deals and won opportunities. I think for many of you out there, you recognize that the sales cycles, the purchasing cycles for many of your clients might be a longer cycle. So if you run a campaign in June, you might not be closing a deal until, I don't know, August or September or October. So it's kind of hard to get that gratification of success in your campaign if that's what your measurement of success is. That's something typically that when we're doing reporting internally, we'll define a more granular level of success of what that looks like that would potentially lead to an opportunity or a sale. And then we'll do reporting 6 months down the line and say, hey, was this successful for the accounts that engaged with this? Did they end up converting or giving us an opportunity or allowing us to do business with us on that solution? And then you can either directly or indirectly attribute that sale or that opportunity back to the marketing campaign that you had done earlier in the year. So what I would recommend for defining success is start with thinking in terms of, okay, what action do I want these customers, these clients to take when they engage with this campaign? Is it to learn more? Is it to watch a video? Is it to schedule a call or schedule a consultation? Because if you don't get past that first step, you're never getting to a sale. And so you have to have success with that first call to action in your campaign in order to measure success, or in order to get to that the consultation or the discussion or the opportunity, and then eventually the won and lost sale. So kind of back it up just a little bit and consider, okay, what does success look like to get me that conversation, to get me that opportunity? And then that's your metric for success, and then that's really what you can base success in your campaign on at that point. And that's from like a very high level campaign. Of course, as they get more complicated and complex, things can look differently, or you could have different levels of success, different phases of a campaign. But we won't go too in depth there. So that's how I would
real
look at
quickly,
it. Yeah.
yeah, no, I was going to add to that one thing that I have personally kind of looked at myself, and I don't know if it's something that you want to advocate for your business or not, but it isn't always that you had mentioned about it making that success point maybe a little bit more attainable and it not necessarily be a sale.
Yeah.
That's very important from an aspect where I look at it as um, even if that sale or that opportunity isn't right for that person that you're talking to, if you have a really successful interaction with them, it could lead to them recommending that opportunity to a peer, or someone else could hear about it, and then that it could be success down the road, but not necessarily with your intended target that you were going with. So that's where it's helpful if you take a look at things and go, was this a positive exchange? Was this something that really helped us out?
Yeah.
Maybe it didn't move the needle here, but maybe it did something else for you as well. So success
Yeah.
can look completely different.
Yeah. One lost opportunity can lead to a one opportunity down the road. You're right, Ed. That's a great point. And then just to answer the last part of the question, what duration should a campaign last? I don't know that I have a specific answer for that one either. Again, that's all going to depend. Going back to the Copilot for Microsoft 365 that we were talking about before, you could run a campaign on Copilot for the next year with how big AI is and how big of a topic that is, and with how long the adoption process is going to take for AI in business and in B2B, especially with security policies and security, like IT security departments, trying to understand what are the risks of AI, whether it's Copilot or like ChatGPT or anything else like that. There's a longer adoption cycle. So that campaign could go on for a while. So really, it's going to depend on you know, again, what your goals are, what success looks like, uh, and if it's to drive it quickly and to drive sales quickly, maybe it's a shorter campaign. If it's to start to nurture these clients or accounts to learn more about AI and to get them comfortable with even considering AI solutions, then maybe that's a 6-month campaign, and you just slowly nurture them and build them up and their confidence in the solutions and technologies that are AI driven until they get to a point where you provided them with all the details, they've done their research, and now they're comfortable at looking at those AI driven solutions. So yeah, it could go a lot of different ways here, but it's all going to depend on what those goals and objectives are and what success looks like for that campaign.
The other piece I'd add to that too, Dave, is you also want to keep in mind what other campaigns that you have that are going on. So if you have too many different messages that are going to a similar audience, you want to make sure you're not saturating them and making one of those messages less important than one of the other ones. The other one I was going to come back to when you said about duration, I'm kind of reminded of like the same way that I approach design and a bunch of other things. It's like, it should be as short as it can be, but as long as it needs to be. I kind of approach that with everything, whether it's an email, whether it's a design, or it's some sort of a web page. That's kind of the target that I shoot for, as short as it can, but as long as it needs to.
I love that brevity. I love brevity. Even though you've all heard me talk way too much today, I love brevity.
And anyone that's been on an email exchange from me knows that that's not my strong suit either. So I don't know how many times my boss has said, "Send me something tweet length."
Exactly. Ed, do you want to take the next question, or do you want to tee up the next one?
Are we talking about the one from Scott that just came in?
Any of them. Let's go to Scott's. So,
sure. So he says, do you have experience with leveraging Microsoft Dynamics 365 Sales, Customer Insights, and Copilot in conjunction with LinkedIn Sales Navigator? That's a very specific question.
Scott, the short answer in my brevity is no. I do not have experience doing that. I have experience with lots of other things integrating with Microsoft 365, and somehow I've become one of the in-house CRM experts for a company just because I ask a lot of questions. But with all of this here, no, I've not had specific experience with that. Although, however, I can look at that and that makes me excited to want to know more about leveraging all of those connections, because I have so many ideas running in my head, and I know Ed sees my wheels spinning, and I know that Ed's wheels are spinning too. So I wish I had a better answer for you for that. But if you have any other thoughts or questions around that, I'd be interested to hearing more about what you have to say and what you're looking at doing uh, with that, or if you've already implemented it. So if you want, throw that in the Q&A, and maybe we can have some more of a conversation on that.
Or as I know we're getting closer to the end too, we could also be reached, through the Market Shift email alias too.
Yeah, good point. So yeah, why don't we start to wrap it up with about 4 minutes left? And Ed, I kind of prefaced this before, but I'm gonna do this as our last question. So I mentioned at the very top of the hour when we started that Ed and I are big cyclist enthusiasts, and we always love watching the Tour de France. And the Tour de France is coming up, I think, in just over a week, right?
I think Saturday it starts.
Yeah, we're getting close. So Ed, who do you have in the Tour de France this year?
Well, this is kind of funny because I saw a message at lunch that made me rethink. Everyone's saying Tadej Pogačar is kind of like the odds-on favorite after the Giro, but it looks like Vingegaard was cleared and is going to start the Tour. So yeah, he's got what, 2 under his belt already?
Yeah, well, both of them have 2 under their belt, and yeah, this should be interesting. I don't know if anybody else can win it aside from Pogačar, but we'll see. I'm super excited about watching that, and we'll be talking more about that in the future. We will. But I think with that we can wrap it up.
I'll be more curious to see how these guys deal with doing the Tour and then ending in Paris and then having to go straight to the Olympics in Paris.
Oh yeah, good point. In all of my excitement over the Tour, I forgot about the Olympics. Although I have been watching the swimming time trials recently, which have been a lot of fun to watch. So, but that's again a different topic for a different day. And Ed, I'll let you wrap things up before we go on for hours about cycling and the Olympics.
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for showing up. Thank everyone for their questions. We had some really great ones that have popped in here. And again, if we didn't get an opportunity to speak to us, or get your question answered, you can go ahead and you can email marketshift@dnh.com, and that'll come to the whole team for them to be able to answer and help you with whatever questions you might still have open. This webinar itself will be available on demand, and usually it's about 24 hours after our broadcast closes.
Same link that you used today.
I'm sorry?
So at the same link that they used today to access the live webinar, it'll be available.
Yeah, there won't be a change on that. It'll be that same link that you can get back to it. And with our upcoming live webinar, now I didn't put it in my notes here, but I believe it's going to be in September, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So we're doing these quarterly, so that'll be our next one coming up in September. It'll be another live webinar just like this one. And again, if you want to get to any of the resources that we showed and went over, you can visit dnh.com/marketshift or dnh.ca/marketshift if you're one of our Canadian customers.
Awesome.
And with that, I think we managed to get it right under the wire here. We're really ticking the clock. I was wondering if we were going to be able to fill the full hour.
The first live webinar for us two on marketing, and I think we nailed it. So hope you all had a great time today, and we look forward to chatting with you soon.
Thank you, everyone.